Happy Sunday. Good to see you. I hope you are well this morning and ready to worship God today. We're very near the end of Romans now. The rest of Romans 15 and 16. Most of it is very personal stuff written by Paul, which lets us see a little bit about his humanity and his reasons for writing the book of the Romans. He says he'd written very boldly by way of a reminder. He wanted to make sure that they remembered the truths of the gospel that they had heard. And it was through the grace of Jesus, he says in 15, verse 15, that he was able to do this and to preach to so many people. He gave God the credit for everything that he did. And he goes on to say that his aim was always to tell new people about Jesus, not to re-preach to places where Jesus was known, but to go to new places and spread the good news about Jesus. He was a pioneer. That was his ministry. That is not always going to be everybody's ministry, but that was his ministry. And he had aspirations to visit Rome and to do that on his way to Spain. He never actually got to Spain, but he wanted to go to Spain because nobody had been to Spain yet. There is some evidence and some tradition that Thomas went to Spain and preached the gospel in Spain. But he just wanted to make sure that those that had heard about Jesus were well grounded in their faith, and those that hadn't heard would get the chance to hear. And he says in verse 30 of chapter 15, he asks that these Roman Christians, Christians who lived in Rome, would pray for him, that he would be able to continue serving the Lord without the oppression and opposition of the Jewish unbelievers in Judea. And that when he went to Jerusalem, he would be acceptable to the saints. Something like that makes one wonder if all through his life there were those who still never really quite trusted him because of how he had been before he was saved. And I think sometimes that's a good lesson to us, really, a thought for the day. You know, sometimes we attribute to people things we know about them from their pre-born again days, you know, and we never really forget that this was how they were and what they used to do. We have to remember the wonderful things that the gospel does for us, that we are transformed, we are changed, and we must not treat people differently if we know that they had a sordid or bad or terrible or did terrible things in their past. But he asks for prayer that he might have the liberty to preach again in Jerusalem. And then he concludes chapter 15 with, "The God of peace be with you all." That's my prayer for you today, that the God of peace will be with you. Peace, what a wonderful word. The God of peace be with you all. And it feels like he's finished his letter. And it may well be that he did. His writing of Romans must have taken, a long time. It's taken us quite a time to read it. But when you're dictating it to someone who is writing it down for you, and that you can see in chapter 16, 22, it says, "I, Tertius, the writer of this letter, greet you in the Lord." Now, he didn't mean the author of this letter. He meant the scribe who wrote it down, because most people were not good writers of the language, and they employed a scribe, somebody who would write things down for them, and most of Paul's letters were dictated to someone else to write them down. And Tertius wrote down this letter, and I think it was Tertius who at times said to Paul, "What did you mean by that?" Or, "But what if?" Or, "Do you mean that because that the more we sin, the more grace abounds? Are you encouraging people to sin more? I think some of the questions and some of those moments when Paul explains a bit in a slightly different way what he means come from Tertius, who's writing it down, saying, will they understand what you mean by this? And I think maybe we have to say thank you to Tertius for his writing down of this letter. And then I ask you just to read through chapter 16 sometime today, and just think about all these different people that Paul wrote about, that he sent greetings to, who lived in Rome, or who he sent greetings from, who travelled with him. It's a lovely final chapter, chapter 16, which we'll look at tomorrow. God bless you, and may the peace of the Lord be with you today. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.